President Trump is touting his peace efforts around the world. In his address to the UN General Assembly, he took credit for stopping 7 global wars and conflicts. But in some cases, his role in the negotiations and how long the peace could last are unclear. Now the president says some are even advocating that he should get a Nobel Peace Prize. Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell has the details.
Yeah, hi, Diane. That's right. We've heard this claim repeated often by President Trump and by the White House that he has been involved in helping to resolve conflicts, at least 7 conflicts, or he said 6, and then they changed it to 7. So what are these conflicts that President Trump has talked about so repeatedly? Well, first of all, let's go through them in time order, if you like. India, Pakistan, back in April. The conflict there erupting after 26 civilians were killed in a terrorist attack that India blamed on Pakistani militants. Now, Trump has repeatedly taken credit for imposing a ceasefire on these 2 nuclear nations. The situation was highly volatile and highly dangerous. President Trump using trade and sanctions as both a carrot and a stick. Now, while Pakistan has credited President Trump's role, India's Prime Minister Modi has said that no one forced India to cease fire. June of this year, Israel and Iran, remember, the 2 nations exchanging artillery, missiles in a conflict that was brief but very bloody. The war ended, but a state of hostility certainly remains. And again, there's been claims and counterclaims about what the US military intervention achieved and how far it set back Iran's nuclear program. But I think it's undeniable that the role of the United States in this conflict was a key factor in bringing an end to it. At least for now. How long remains to be seen. Rwanda, June of 2025. The US brokered a peace deal between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda that was aimed at ending this conflict that's been going on in eastern Congo for years. The Congolese president, Felix Tshisekedi, said that a US mediated, this is very recently, the US mediated peace deal signed with Rwanda has not calmed the fighting, though, in eastern Congo. The rebels are still there. There are breaches, though he did thank President Donald Trump for attempting to end the conflict. So, have tensions subsided? Yes. Has the conflict ended? No. July 2025, Cambodia and Thailand. This was a brief upsurge in tensions, which again have been simmering for a long time in the border region. Cambodia and Thailand agreeing to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire following peace talks that were actually brokered by the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. At least 30 were killed, thousands displaced. Donald Trump intervened to force a ceasefire, again using the threats of sanctions, trade, as both a carrot and a stick. However, tensions remain extremely high. Both sides accusing each other of breaches of agreements that have been made. And very recently, Thailand has kept the border area closed and imposing Thai military law on disputed villages, something that Cambodia objects to. Armenia and Azerbaijan in August. President Trump bringing the 2 countries together. Again, a long simmering and sometimes outright deadly dispute that centered on this disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. This has run for decades and decades. It wasn't a peace deal as such, rather an agreement. Russia had been seen as the broker historically. President Trump also getting involved. Again, there are potential trade deals to be done. But for now, the border between the 2 nations is closed, diplomatic ties remain broken, but open conflict has absolutely ended. Now, the 7th, there's some mystery about this. We think that President Trump is referring to Kosovo and Serbia, who were involved in a bloody, protracted conflict in the 1990s. President Trump saying that they were on the verge of conflict again. Now, that isn't the case. They weren't. There have been tensions that have risen and subsided for many years. Perhaps they were a little more elevated. In reality, this was an economic normalization agreement that did help to lower tensions, not end them. And like I say, there's no normalization. And we've seen this repeated use of economic tools by President Trump to try and bang heads together, to force people to sit down and talk. There's been lots of discussion. We know President Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize. Cambodia, Pakistan and Israel have all nominated Donald Trump for the Peace Prize. And it's undeniable that President Trump has used his forceful manner, the tools of diplomacy, but primarily of trade and sanctions, to knock heads together repeatedly around the world. And when President Trump calls, leaders around the world they listen. If they're not scared, at least. And that has absolutely had an impact. But just before I end, the two bloodiest and intractable conflicts, Israel's war against Hamas and the relentless bombing of Gaza and Russia's bloody assault on Ukraine, have not ended. And despite promises by President Trump to the contrary, and I think any measure of whether he is eligible for the Nobel Peace Prize will hinge on his ability to use the power that he has, the power of the bully pulpit, if you like, to try and force those conflicts to end. Diane?
Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell, thank you.